your chat to private. Let's see. Okay, yeah.
I think it defaults to private.
Okay, cool. Not sure if that doesn't matter right now because we're at 0 viewers. But the beeping that was an issue before seems to have gone away.
Yeah, I don't know. I just prayed to the right combination of gods.
That's what it takes.
I can hear something, but maybe it's like a washing machine or something. It's hard to tell what it is, but I mean, it also doesn't really bother me at all. So
yeah, whatever's in the background is quiet enough that it doesn't really interfere. Let's play around with the viewing option screen. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. If one person needs to be emphasized more than others, that can work, but I'll stick with this for now. All right, up to 3 viewers now.
Welcome.
the 3 viewers on us, are they? Do we count as viewers?
Yes, I'd like to give a big shout out to my in-private window of this stream.
All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
There. I like that better. I don't like that little white black space between them. Okay. Time. Okay. Well, it is noon now, so I guess we can start at any time, even with fairly low number, but it's streaming the way it's supposed to. Yeah, it's streaming. It's just not very popular.
Give it time.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
I posted a mention of my appearance, and it got some likes, but I don't know if that means people are actually going to watch.
Yeah, that's often the issue. That
It only just turned 12 anyway, didn't it?
Yeah,
it's not even 12 by my clock. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we may as well get started with the preliminaries since it's past noon now. Let's. All right. So I went over all this with you, but I'll go over it again for the purposes of the very small audience. Okay, yeah. As I said, I mentioned the others. Make sure you're set to private chat, just in case anything spoilers, anything gets put in the public chat. This is, I think, the largest I can get this. Okay. Yeah. So the rules, as I said before, are scoring is. It's hard to get energy up when I see how small the numbers are, but All right. This will also be archived on YouTube afterwards, so people can still watch it. So the scoring is not unlike the podcast, not competitive. It's just who's line scoring. I'll award points subjectively based on how much I like your answer. Generally, I like correct answers better than non-correct answers. So that's what you should be aiming for. It'll be 9 categories, 2 related questions in each, so 18 questions in all. Each slide will also have a picture on it. The pictures are sometimes hints, sometimes they're just illustrations, and if you want to see anything in larger size, there's any picture that has a red border around it, I can show you in larger size. So we'll do 3 rounds. The first round, we'll do I guess, ordering question. I was having trouble coming up with a name for it. I think I called it ranking question, but then there's no real ranking because it's not a competitive game. So we'll have an ordering question. Based on that, you'll get to select a category to answer. Each player will get to select a category to answer by themselves, and it'll be sequentially passed if they don't get it right. Then the second round, we'll do another ordering thing, and then people will get to select a category for the other 2 to answer together. And the third round, everyone can work together. So as I said, it's more cooperative at this point than competitive. And as just like on the podcast, please, talk through your process, share it with the audience. So we've doubled the audience, incidentally. And share anything that feels like good content, interesting connections or thoughts or anything like that. And before we begin, just a quick thank you to our playtesters, Victoria Gross, Dargan Ware, Jimmy Lee. They work together so well that I'm hoping to get them together for an actual episode. Thank you to StreamYard, allowing me to stream. To our Patreon supporters, Adam Hahn, Christine Welchel, Isaac Renner, Andrew Darby, Cody Wilson, Ben Rothenberg, Patrick Friel, Jeremy Horwitz, Dargan Ware, and that list could potentially include anyone watching this if you sign up at Patreon.
Does
and
that list include a slight conflict of interest, perhaps?
We'll find out. And of course, thank you to all viewers, those on the stream right now and those who view this later through the archive. And it's just a quick plug for the other aspects of my fact-based empire. My Facts of the Day page updated daily, super hard quizzes more or less monthly, although many of the questions for that I'm also transferring to this. So in a way, this is kind of like a super hard quiz. My podcast up to 21 episodes, hopefully more within the next few weeks. And then PayPal, Venmo, Patreon options. I'll put these up at the end as well. So if you enjoyed what you watched, you can compensate me. And that's, of course, also where you can sign up to have your name added to that list. So I believe now we are. So now we can, and we can all. Actually, let's do the ordering question before introduction, so that way we have an order for the introductions. Otherwise, I would just. Well, I'd go with what order on my screen or alphabetical or something, but whatever. So in a few minutes you'll introduce yourselves, but now we'll do the first ordering question. So here's the question. In 2021, Kamala Harris stepped down as senator for the U.S. state of California in order to take the vice presidency, and her replacement was a man named Alex Padilla. So prior to 2021, what was the last calendar year in which California was represented in the U.S. Senate by someone who is not a woman? And I'll give you approximately 10 seconds. Think about that.
As in, you mean either of the 2, or do you mean both?
Yeah, and any seat, and any of California's seats. All right, everyone ready?
Mm-hmm.
1 sec.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so hold up your answers and we'll read them. 1984 for Mick, 1993 for Patrick, 1991 for Andrew. Okay, so we have a nice clean ordering. So Alan Cranston, the last elected male senator from California, announced his retirement in 1992, but because of the way the system works, his term crept on until the first few days of 1993. So 1993, Patrick has it exactly on the nose. Yeah.
Well, I am a California resident, and I do feel I wrote some version of that question for a pub quiz once.
Oh,
But that being said, I wasn't 100% sure if it was 91 or 93.
all right. So Patrick, Andrew, and Mick. And let's go in that order now for just say, well, you already kind of said where you are, but yeah, general something geographic and one sentence about yourself.
All right. So my name is Patrick Friel, and I'm joining from Los Angeles, California, where I am a high school math teacher.
All right, Andrew.
Hey, I'm Andrew Fisher. I live in Sheffield, England, and I'm currently unemployed, but in a few weeks I'm going to be starting a PhD in pure maths. So get on with the mathematician.
All right. Well, our first international contestant and the closest to diversity we have in this particular episode.
We have a mathematician, another kind of mathematician, and a statistician.
All right, and Mick.
My name is Mik Larsen. I'm originally from Grants Pass, Oregon, but I also live in the Los Angeles area, and I'm a collegiate instructor in ancient history.
All right. Well, we'll see if there are any questions on math or ancient history. I don't think there are, though.
Yeah, probably not. I am a California resident, but I was not in 1993.
Okay. All right, so let's rearrange the. It should let me rearrange the order. Patrick, Andrew, Mick. Yes. All right. So yeah, you can all see the screen. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So Patrick will get first choice among these categories. I won't explain in full what they are to leave some surprise for when they're revealed, but I have three-tongued women, probably whatever it is, it's less exciting than whatever you're picturing. So Cosmo says you're fat. Trying my trend of using song lyrics as category names. Magic bullets might be about blenders, might be about JFK assassination, probably about neither of those things. Pyrar Balara Lumumba. I think that's not too soon to make that joke, but if it is, I apologize. You must be Joe King, the triumph of science over death, an anti-current events category. They play Maigret, self-explanatory. In the end, does it even matter? A category about the scoring system on this show. And Portrait of a Dalek on Fire. So without any further explanation of those, I'll let Patrick select one initially to deal with initially by himself.
Right, and these are intentionally opaque. Let's go with So Cosmo Says You're Fat.
All right. The playtest, that was also the first that was chosen. So starting now with Patrick individually. John Brisbane Walker, the late 19th century owner/publisher of Cosmopolitan magazine, famously dispatched Elizabeth Bisland in November 1889 to do what?
Oh, gosh. Huh. I did not even know Cosmopolitan was that old. So, is this going to be one of these things where we know Elizabeth Bisland by a different name? So I really don't have anything here, but I know Nellie Bly had some other name. I'm going to hope that's who Elizabeth Bisland is, and it was to go around the world, because I have no better guess.
All right, so we get back to that Gettier case thing we discussed last time of the difference between knowledge and justified true belief. So the first clue here is that's, I didn't specify it, but that's obviously not a picture of John Brisbane Walker, because you can see from the style that it's clearly a recent image, much more recent than 19th century. Do any of you recognize who that is?
No.
I do not know.
The late Sigmund Freud.
It is the actor who played. Actually, he did not play Sigmund Freud. He played a different character in the 7% Solution, Robert Duvall. But he is here. He is portraying Joseph Pulitzer. So Joseph Pulitzer did not run Cosmopolitan magazine. He ran the New York World, and in November 1889, he dispatched Nellie Bly to go around the world. One of his rivals heard about this and thought, you know what I should do is I should send a completely different woman to race around the world. So your logic, Patrick, was not quite correct in that Elizabeth Island and Nellie Bly are two different people.
But I will take your points nonetheless.
Yes. They were circumnavigating the world at the same time, essentially, building up publicity by racing each other. So I will give you for that. In honor of the number of days it took Nellie Bly to circumnavigate the world, 8 fewer than Phileas Fogg, I will give you 72 points.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
I have no sense if that's a lot of points, but
neither does Yogesh.
Exactly. All right. But I could also have given you 1/900 points in honor of Sir Mix-a-Lot.
True.
All right, here's your next question. John Brisbane Walker's other possessions included an area in the western United States dubbed Garden of the Angels or Garden of the Titans. Walker envisioned a certain use for this location, a use that was not fully realized until the city of Denver purchased it from him in 1927 and opened it to the public in 1941. By what name is Walker's erstwhile property known today?
Oh, okay. That picture is not helping me. I recognize who I'm looking at there, but I don't know what movie this is. I was recently in Denver, but the name of the property. Oh, okay. So maybe. Okay. So something Denver-ish that would be maybe privately held, open to the Angels, Titans. I am going to guess that this is Red Rocks because there's really impressive looking things there, and maybe they were called Titans or something like that.
All right. What was I saying? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the film there is, so this image there is from the film Red Rock West. The choice between that and an image of Dennis Potter making a very angry face, which would also have been amusing. But yeah, so you puzzled it through correctly. Yeah, it's near Morrison, Colorado. There's a Red Rocks Park there, but within it is Red Rocks Amphitheater, which is a very famous concert venue, which was the what Walker envisioned for it because of the acoustics of the natural scenery. All right.
I was there this summer. But it still took me a while to figure this out. Good question.
All right, so I will give you a metamorphic number of points because I think that's what sandstone is, but don't quote me on that.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so now Andrew's turn to select.
Feel like this may be an awful choice, but I like the category names. I'm going to go for Parabaya a Lumumba.
All right, Parabalar a Lumumba. So here's your question. A CIA plot to murder Patrice Lumumba was one of many unsavory U.S. government activities uncovered by the 1975 Select Committee, chaired by which Idaho Democratic senator, seen below with Jimmy Carter. Together with the House's Pike Committee and the Ford administration's Rockefeller Commission, this committee brought to light such abuses of power as Project MKUltra, COINTELPRO, Operation Mockingbird, and the Family Jewels assassination program.
Oh dear. I can't say the list of Idaho Democratic senators I can peel off is particularly long. Right, so what have we got here? So MKUltra, COINTELPRO, Mockingbird, and Family Jewels assassination. So I'm just trying to think of any named U.S. Senate committees. There's obviously the Un-American Activities one, but that was far earlier. So certainly not McCarthy. Idaho. Who is from Idaho? Yeah, I'm struggling with this. I'm very much pulling a blank. I'm just going to have to go for the ever-reliable Smith and say the Smith Committee.
All right, this was Senator Smith, I think, was in the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, was supposed to be from Montana. Well, it's never actually revealed in the
Jefferson Smith is particularly who I mean, yes.
Yes. not actually revealed in the movie where he's from, although the treatment it was based on was called The Gentleman from Montana. But yeah, good guess. Always guess. When there's no penalty to guess, always guess. Sometimes it'll pay off. Here it didn't. So I'll pass to Mick.
Well, the first thing that I thought, which is even if you didn't include the date of 1975, it shows how archaic this information is. There is a Democratic senator from Idaho. But I do not have a strong guess either. I was thinking like famous commissions, such as like there was a Tower Commission, but I don't think that's this guy. He did something entirely different in government. So I will have to pass. I got nothing here.
All right. You don't want to just guess another random name?
No, that would be beneath my dignity, I think.
Not beneath mine.
Fair enough. Patrick?
Yeah, I don't know this committee. I think the timeline for this is wrong, but I know at some point in the past there was a prominent senator from Idaho named Boren, and maybe there's a whole family there. So I'll try Boren.
Yeah, so I did think, and it did come up in the playtest, that I think the name you're thinking of is Bora, not Boren.
Oh, Bora. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
even that's wrong.
Yeah, but that was that was what I thought would come up as a guess, and it did come up in the playtest. And I mean, he was earlier, and he was a Republican, but you're right, that is probably the most famous Idaho senator of the 20th century. But yeah, it's the name of the committee. It might be more remembered now than the name of the senator, but of course, the committees are known by their the name of their chair generally. So it was basically asking kind of if you remember the name of the committee. It was called the Church Committee. It was chaired by Frank Church.
Okay.
All right, and now Andrew, next question. 1933's Havara Agreement, which saw the Nazi government diffuse an international boycott by offering German Jews a chance to permanently emigrate to mandatory Palestine, was the inspiration for whose anti-Semitic conspiracy theory embracing doctoral thesis at Patrice Lumumba University? This man, pictured below, later expanded that dissertation into the thoroughly discredited book, The Other Side, The Secret Relationship Between Nazism and Zionism.
I feel like I should know this. So, I don't know how much this is a thing in the US, but in the UK, over lockdown, obviously, it became much more common for politicians and prominent political commentators to work from home, and they'd always do the thing where they would show off their bookshelf and declare how worldly they are by not saying it and stuff. And I'm pretty sure there was Michael Gove, who is in the UK cabinet, had some dodgy books. I think this might have been one of them. Maybe. I'm just trying to think. What are the...
We've made it to double-digit numbers of viewers now.
Double-digit people get to see me mangle this. So, let me think. 1933. So, do I recognise the picture? I do not, although that is I was going to say, is that a Palestine flag behind him, but it seems a little off, and I'm not sure why. Is this gonna, I don't think it's anyone, is there anyone prominent from, because that's certainly a pretty recent picture. I'm just trying to think if Mahmoud Abbas would have went to that university. It seems very unlikely. No, I really don't like this answer, but in lieu of just, not just guessing, I'm based on the fact that it's possibly a Palestine flag, although I don't think it is. I'll say Mahmoud Abbas. Yeah,
so that basic pattern of red, white, green, and then black, it shows up on
a few different ones, yeah.
Yeah, several flags in the Middle East. But I mean, it definitely helps you. It should help you rule out a few. Like in the playtest, I think someone from Egypt was guessed, but that's clearly not an Egyptian flag.
No.
But yeah, in this case, so Patrice Lumumba University it's no longer called that, but the university has a different name now, but it's still there. It's been a fixture of Moscow for several decades, and many prominent leftists from around the world were educated there. But this particular one, and this is again why I say always guess. You deciphered the clues correctly. It is Mahmoud Abbas.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, I probably should have said it was the one. I didn't want to say it was the one in Moscow in case I was horrifically wrong, but I thought it might have been the one that had changed its name a couple of times. But yeah, okay, that's cool.
Good knowledge. Yes, I will give you an authoritative number of points, or yeah, formerly a mandatory number of points, but not anymore. All right, Mick, you get to pick a category now.
I think I'll go with three-tongued women.
All right. So, between Luchino Visconti's Rocco and His Brothers and The Leopard, Federico Fellini's 8½, and Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in the West, among others, Claudia Cardinale was unquestionably one of the premier muses of 60s Italian art cinema. Surprisingly, however, the actress did not learn Italian until she was an adult. This is especially ironic as she grew up speaking 3 other Mediterranean languages. Name any 2 of those 3.
Oh, great. This is something I know very little about, Italian art cinema, aside from being peripheral to Yogesh's life in several ways. The name Claudia Cardinale is about as Italian of a name as you can get, which has not helped me at all. Either this is someone whose family was not living in Italy for various reasons, I could think about diplomatic reasons perhaps, or in some Italy-adjacent region where they don't speak Italian at all. So logical places that might be nearby might be what is now Croatia, maybe something like Malta, or Tunisia or Libya, places where Italians would be. So any 2. So it'd be a place which is probably multilingual by nature. So it could include places like, for instance, Switzerland or Belgium or the Netherlands or something like that. But this is going to be a shot in the dark. So I will sort of play the percentages, which is probably the wrong thing to do in a question like this. And I will say French and German, assuming that she might have grown up in Switzerland. Yogesh?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. Yeah, Switzerland isn't really a Mediterranean country. It's landlocked, and I wouldn't really consider German a Mediterranean land. I mean, Germany borders the Baltic and the north, but not really the Mediterranean.
Fair point.
But yeah, I mean, you took your guess. Good, which is good. All right, Patrick?
Yeah, I did not realize she was not Italian, or at least was not a native speaker of Italian. Just, again, kind of playing the percentages of Mediterranean languages that someone might speak before winding up in Italy. I'll try Spanish and Greek.
Good guesses, but not correct. Andrew?
So I was thinking of this from a different way. That seems like a pretty Italian name to me, Claudia Cardinale. And I was thinking rather than... So in Italy itself, there's various... I think that, there's the line between dialects and languages is pretty well. I'm not a linguist, but as far as I'm aware, is fairly blurred. And I'm trying to think if things like Sicilian and Neapolitan, those kind of things are considered languages in their own right. Because I was thinking probably some like inner Italian languages. So. I would think Neapolitan is the most likely one if that counts as one, and another one I'm trying to think other than Sicilian. I guess Sardinian actually no, Sardinian definitely has its own language. Is that worth going for Neapolitan? What's the likelihood of someone speaking both Sicilian and Sardinian? I'm going to say Sicilian and Neapolitan.
All right, good guesses, and yeah, so 2 of you had thoughts along the right lines. Yeah, I mean, Andrew was right to think about sort of Italian regional languages that are different from Italian. Mick, I briefly mentioned when talking about potential places she might be from, you actually did say the correct one. So
Was it Malta?
It was actually Tunisia. She, at the time, the French protectorate of Tunisia, she was from the Italian community within Tunis. So the two main languages there, French and Arabic, or Tunisian Arabic, depending on how you slice the Arabic pie. But the other language would have come from her parents. Her parents were ethnic Sicilian, so Sicilian was the third.
Okay.
So
combined, me and Mick. That's the correct answer.
all right, and next question. This is mixed, right? Yeah. Okay. So next question. Anna Kramling, pictured below, recently signed to the Panda Esports Agency, is reportedly fluent in English, Spanish, and Swedish. She is also one of a very, very small number of people in the world whose parents both hold what distinction?
Well, I know who this person is. And I have listened to this person, and the question is then how to phrase my answer correctly, because she is an esports commentator in the chess world. And so the question is exactly what distinction her parents might hold. Now, there are many ranks within the chess world. All have some of the word master in them. But there's a very, very small number of them that I must assume that it's the high rank of Grandmaster, which I will submit to the committee.
Yeah, so the very small number is the limiting factor in particular is the very small number of female grandmasters, which is growing. The very first woman to be awarded that rank was in 1978, and of course the numbers have grown since then, but still nowhere close to being not gender skewed, unfortunately. But yes, her father is Juan Manuel Bayón López, a Spanish grandmaster. Her mother, Pia Kramling, a Swedish grandmaster. And yes, both of her parents are grandmasters.
Yeah, she is not herself a grandmaster, I believe. She is,
No, she's.
lower
Is she
ranking.
even, I'm not sure if she's even international master. I know she's been on Levy's YouTube channel once or twice, and I feel like she might be FIDE master, but
Yeah, or maybe a WGM.
I don't think she's fairly young. I don't think she's even like 20 years old
Yeah.
yet. So yeah, she hasn't really climbed the ranks. But
Well, so there's this population of young sort of, say like telegenic chess personalities whose careers are not becoming better at chess, but becoming better at talking about chess to a video audience. So I think that's what her career direction probably is.
Fair enough. Yeah, we can't all be Tani, whatever his last name is. Yeah. All right. Okay. So now, actually, I think we go to now another ranking.
Do I get any points for that?
Oh yes, you got you got ELO points for it.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. I think we can go back to doing another ranking question now. So here's the question: in what was the last calendar year in which the city of Atlanta had a mayor who was not a Democrat?
Ooh. I hope the next one of these, Yogesh, is going to be international, so I might have more of a shot.
Well, there's only.
I still have a shot.
Yeah. There's only two of them. Although, if there's a tie on this one, I'll put another one. But
I'm going to swing for the fences here.
Yeah, but you may also have later questions in which your Britishness gives you a huge advantage, possibly.
You could say.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's been well over 10 seconds now. So you can all hold up your answers. 1877, 1911, and what does that say? 1978.
Yeah.
Okay. So once again, this time Patrick is not directly on the nose. The last Republican mayor, Nedum El Angier, became mayor in 1877, but his term ended in 1879. So
That's impressive.
So this time it's Patrick Mick Andrew is the ranking, and all right. Okay, so let's rearrange that order now. Okay. And now, Patrick, you can select for Mick and Andrew to work on together.
Okay. So I don't really know what their strengths are, but I know what I don't want to play, and I feel like I'm outing myself now. I have never seen an episode of Doctor Who, so I will let them play Portrait of a Dalek on Fire.
All right. So, first question, and that.
Saline Siama / Doctor Who mashup.
All right. Actress Carlson Young, seen below in a 2010 episode of Pretty Little Liars, because why not, made her feature directing debut with a 2021 adaptation of what 1666 novel by Margaret Cavendish, a lady-in-waiting to England's queen in exile Henrietta Marie. Depicting a utopia ruled by a brilliant and learned woman, this book, which also inspired a 2014 homage by Siri Hustvedt, has been called the first ever work of science fiction. And I can blow up the cover title page, yeah, if you want.
I feel this is really frustrating. So I'm subscribed to Tim Polly's Quiz Bites newsletter, and one of the last ones he did a couple months ago was science fiction novels. And I reread that page probably about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, and I looked at this and I was like, oh, I should remember that. But guess what I don't remember?
The title.
So if you had it the other way around, I definitely wouldn't be able to tell you as Margaret Cavendish. I can't bloody remember what this is called now.
Yeah.
You can see the blown up version of the title, the description. So basically, I'm giving you everything except one word.
Yeah, I still can't remember. Mick, do you have anything here?
I like utopian fiction from this era. This is not one of the ones that I know anything about. I mean, there's a famous adventure novel called The Lost World, which is not this.
It's not
by
this.
Conan Doyle, I believe.
It is, yeah. It's a short.
And probably not named after this.
I think I just. Sorry, I think I just remembered what it might be. It might be The Floating World, or maybe I'm making that up.
The Floating World.
Yeah. Am I making that up?
Well, the Floating World is the name of the Japanese sort of woodblock cultural era from the 1000 to 1200.
Yeah, that seems.
It might be the title of this, but also I think just from the space that's been excised, could you fit the word floating in there?
Oh wait, I just I've suddenly just clocked that. I was thinking in my head, I'm pretty sure this has something to do with fire, and then I forgot what the name of this category is. So this is going to have something to do with fire. Is it Burning World? Something like that. It doesn't sound quite right, but it sounds like I think it's something similar to that. God, I should really know this.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to accede to whatever your guess is because you have something more proximal.
I mean,
given
its Portrait of a Dalek on Fire, I'm inclined to say Burning World because I think I'm going to be a little bit wrong, but it's along those lines. Should we go for this?
Yeah, I'm down for that.
We will lock in the Burning World. There you go.
All right, Patrick, what do you think?
Okay, so I saw this and thought to myself, I feel like this is something I've learned, within the last year, and Andrew has put his finger on how I learned this, and I think it's Blazing.
Oh, that's it.
Blazing World. I'm not 100% on that, but I think that's what it is.
Yeah. All right, so you all picked. I putting the word fire right up there in big letters. I hoped was also would be a clue, along with giving you literally everything except one word in the title. But yes, Patrick is. Andrew got very, very close, but Patrick had it correct. It's usually referred to as the Blazing World, although technically it was published as the description of a new world called the Blazing World. But the film version and Siri Hustvedt's novel are both called The Blazing World. So, very good, Patrick, and you'll get a inverting the 1666. You'll get a 999 points. Right, and again, Mick and Andrew. The 2002 audio drama Blue Veils and Golden Sands. The 2004 stage. Oops. The 2000. What am I doing here? 2004 stage play Standing Wave, the 2009 Genie-winning Canadian documentary The Delian Mode, the 2018 stage play Hymns for Robots, and a 2020 feature-length biopic written and directed by its star Caroline Katz and subtitled The Myths and Legendary Tapes, all independently treat the life of which 20th century composer?
Interesting.
Well, we have a number of peripheral clues.
Yes. Well, I'm looking at this the BBC logo.
Why is it there?
Sorry?
Why is that there? That must mean something.
It definitely means something. I don't recognize this logo at all. It's not one of the main radio stations or anything. It obviously looks like peaks and that's just, I guess it's you can consider that like a wave function of sorts, if that, can be included a standing wave.
Yeah.
I was thinking this sounds like it's going to be about something like fairly experimental.
Yes.
Like along the well, it's not going to be Philip Glass because he's still writing apart from anything else.
Yeah, I wouldn't call him 20th century because
exactly,
he's living and working in our century.
Yeah. He obviously did a lot of stuff in the 80s and stuff, but yeah, he's very much still going. So purely 20th century experimental kind of composer. Something to do with fire.
I thought that I had, there might be something like John Cage maybe, because some of his like experimental soundscapes and something with tapes, and it's called the Myths and Legendary Tapes, including things like playing recordings sort of randomly against one another, which might have something to do with the Hymns for Robots title about sort of like mechanical operations and music. But I don't this is all trying to make an educated guess at this. We also have a biopic, which is written and directed by a star whose name would signify femaleness.
Oh yes, very good point. I missed that.
Okay. I couldn't name a single 20th century female composer. That's on me.
There's someone called Ellen's Willich, I think, but I mean it's not anything. I mean the answer's going to have something to do with fire again, right? We presume.
Possibly.
I can't see any clues to do with fire in there. Or they're going to be known for a work to do with fire. So,
or it could just be the category relates to a feminist film, and both of the questions are about prominent women.
Oh yes, also yes. Canadian documentary, is that going to be specific? Like, are we talking about Canadian composer here? There is certainly. Was Lamonte Young Canadian? I feel like one of that. Although Lamonte Young is also still alive, as far I think. Terry Riley. I don't know. I'm struggling.
Canadian composer is another category, which is a big empty space in my mind.
Yeah. Can we name any 20th century? I can name various 20th century women composers. I can't name any experimental ones, and ones who it sounds like this would be. So, I don't know. What do you think? Should we say John Cage, just in case obviously Caroline Klass is a star, but in case that.
If you're doing experimental film, it doesn't matter,
Yeah. Yeah, John Cage sounds like the best thing that you come up with there. So.
Okay.
Don't think we have anything better. You'll say that, yeah.
All right. I guess I would have had, if that were right, I would have had to give you 433 points. But yeah, I mean, as you know, the gender is off, and this actually was the UK-centric question I thought Andrew might have an advantage on. But hasn't turned out that way. Patrick?
All right. Well, you saying it's UK-centric does not help me at all, and it makes me feel the guess I was going to give is now even lousier as a guess. But I'm seeing, the titles here suggest this is something electronic, and there seems to be a female. I think of her more as a performer than a composer, but electronic music female. I would throw out Wendy Carlos, but I don't think that it's correct.
Yeah. So, so the logo in the lower right is specifically the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, who were credited with all of the music and many of the sound effects for the original series of Doctor Who. And the theme from that is famously the first major TV theme that can be called electronic music. That it was kind of assembled using like electronic modalities and tonalities and tapes and things like that. You can find some videos on YouTube of the actual assembling of it. It's very fascinating. But yeah, the woman who was not credited at the time because she was subsumed within BBC Radiophonic Workshop, but subsequently became famous. Technically not the composer. The theme is credited to Ron Grainer, the Australian composer who also did themes for The Prisoner and Steptoe and Son and so on. But the actual assembling of it and essentially the producing of it was done by Delia Derbyshire.
Oh,
sounds a little
I've
familiar.
heard the name,
Yeah.
but I was never going to pull that. Okay.
Yeah. Once again, the Delian mode is another kind of very direct hint there. Yeah, she also did music for The Legend of Hell House, a very good 70s horror film. All right. I've completely forgotten where we are now.
I think it's Mick now, isn't it?
Yes, that sounds right. Mick to pick for Patrick and Andrew to work together.
Well, I'm not gonna go in the musical direction twice in a row, so I'm gonna go with the vague Magic Bullets.
All right.
All right.
The Hollywood movie Dr. Ehrlich's Magic Bullet, which earned its co-writer John Huston the first of his 15 career Oscar nominations, starred Edward G. Robinson as German Nobel laureate Dr. Paul Ehrlich, who battled anti-Semitism and false accusations of misconduct while struggling to find a cure for what disease?
I've literally, yesterday/the day before, I've added flashcards for all the Nobel Prize winners. However, obviously they have not come up yet.
Yeah, this name sounds familiar to me, but I do not know which disease this. Do we think it's an infectious disease? That's what's popping into my head, but I don't even know that for sure.
I would think so. So, anti-Semitism, false accusation. So we thinking something like malaria, something like that.
That's certainly possible.
I think German. So malaria was, in terms of prevalence. I'm just trying to think, where would a German, this person could have been working in, various German German controlled parts of Africa in the early 20th century or late 19th century.
Yeah, I mean, just malaria is still kind of a problem. So has malaria been solved well enough that they would reward someone with a Nobel for, fixing it? I'm just not sure. But again, the phrase here is struggles to find a cure, not necessarily cured.
Wait. There was, there was, I can't remember what it was, but I've just remembered there was definitely, I think it might be malaria. There was definitely a Nobel laureate, and it might have been actually, I think it might have been two Nobel laureates, co-laureates basically, who were awarded for using malaria inoculations against something else or some particular part of it. There was I've definitely seen the word malaria in the last few days when I was reading through.
Okay, if that rings a bell for you, then I'm fine because I don't have any specific knowledge on this.
I'm not super confident. I wouldn't be staking any money on this, but I feel like it's a decent enough guess.
Sure.
But, okay, we will say malaria, Yogesh.
Decent guess, but not correct. You have any thoughts, Mick?
My first thought was something like tuberculosis, which I associate with, obviously, if the movie's coming out in 1940, this is probably a generation or two before that for a story to popularize. But it has to be after 1895 or so for the Nobel Prizes to matter. But I know I've read the story of how tuberculosis was first treated. I don't recognize this name in conjunction with that. The false accusations of misconduct is interesting because you wouldn't think of that in terms of this as some sort of research, medical ethics, which is probably not something people care a lot about in 1910 or 1920 either. So it could be some kind of venereal disease, of which there are many. But I'm going to go with tuberculosis.
All right, yeah. So oddly, even though this cure was his now considered his biggest accomplishment, it actually came after he had won the Nobel Prize. I don't know how common that is for people's biggest accomplishment to come after the Nobel. He actually, many say he was overlooked for his work in sort of co-developing the diphtheria antitoxin, which won a prize for another scientist, but he was overlooked. But he did win one a few years later, but it was actually after that he embarked on what he would become known for, and very controversial. Even the movie about it was controversial for censorship reasons, because it was in fact a venereal disease. Specifically, he developed the brand name is Salvarsan. It has a technical name as well, but it is an effective treatment for syphilis. Yeah, it was called the magic bullet because kind of it targeted specifically the microbes that caused the disease and not others. All right.
Should have gone for syphilis.
It's a good rule in life in general, yes. All right, and Andrew and Patrick again. Incredibly, Austrian physician Dr. Julius Wagner-Jareg was awarded in 1927 Nobel Prize for treating sufferers of syphilis by deliberately infecting them with what illness? About 15% of those given this therapy died, but the rest showed considerable improvement in their symptoms. More recently, Dr. Henry Heimlich of Heimlich maneuver fame, wrongly, some would say fraudulently, advocated this disease as a potential cure for HIV/AIDS.
Okay, well, I mean, I hate to say this in case I'm horrifically wrong, but I honestly do think this is malaria. Okay,
that's fine. I don't really have any insight on this one.
Like this is like I remember specifically seeing it with malaria inoculation. Wait, does that mean the same thing actually? That doesn't mean the same thing, does it? I guess. Oh, I don't want to not say it in case it is that. But
so the idea was they were giving people malaria to inoculate them from syphilis. If you feel like you've read something like that, we can go with it because
I don't know the syphilis bit. Well, okay, let's put this aside. What else would you? Basically, I don't have. This is the only thing that popped into my head. I don't really have any other thoughts on this. What else? Let's talk through some other things.
Yeah. So it's something that would kill about 15% of people. And something that's, I guess, kind of still around if people are talking about it. Like it seems like, this is a disease that is serious, but not 100% deadly if we're using it to cure other things or proposing that, which I guess is consistent with malaria, but I don't feel like I've heard any of these facts.
No, I haven't. Yeah. I think maybe I'm just getting stuck in my head because I've seen something on the Nobel list about malaria inoculation, but I really want to say malaria.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Okay, we will say malaria, Yogesh.
All right. Do any of you recognize the picture?
So
I didn't even look at that. Oh, okay, that's.
Is that Uruguay?
Yeah, I guess. No, I think it's in Buenos Aires, but yeah.
It's the Argentine flag as well.
Oh yeah, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an Argentine flag next to it, what's called the Obelisca de Buenos Aires, or however you say it in Spanish. But yeah, yes, this is basically a view of Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires is Spanish for good air.
Oh, yes. Yeah, obviously.
Yes, obviously
We
the
were
opposite
too
of that.
dumb for your hint.
The opposite of that would be bad air or malaria.
Okay.
But yeah, the idea behind it is it's what's called pyrotherapy. Basically, the idea of kind of burning an infectious agent by raising fever. So by infecting, so yeah, it wasn't inoculation. It was literally infecting them with malaria. One of my playtester Victoria Gross had read a whole book about malaria, so she was explaining this quite well. But basically, it was one of the less toxic strains of it. Still, obviously, dangerous, but it had a fairly predictable course. But it reliably induced a fever, which in turn would, burn away the infectious agent for syphilis. And it was used basically on people who were in late stage syphilis. So that at that point, what sets in is called paralytic dementia. Basically, people are essentially gone mentally, and physically. So anything, even if it had, even if you could only save 85% of them, that was still considered a major breakthrough. But yeah, and Heimlich has his reputation, although, at one point he could be called maybe the most famous doctor in America, his reputation has taken a huge hit as people have looked into his claims and He also advocated his maneuver for things that it was clearly not good for, like saving drowning victims, which is actually very dangerous if you try and use the Heimlich on drowning victims.
Yeah, to use a sports metaphor, he took a huge league and then he choked.
Yes, but there is actually a website devoted entirely to attacking and debunking him, and it is run by one Peter Heimlich, his son.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So you do get. Let's give you 85 points on that in honor of the success rate.
Okay.
All right. And so now let's see. That was Mick's pick. So it looks like it's Andrew's turn to pick for Patrick and Mick.
Right. This is difficult. There's nothing really that massively jumps out at me. I was talking about. Oh yeah, no. Let's go for you must be joking.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I know. I couldn't figure out a way to kind of gray out or X out the categories that had already been picked, but yeah, there's only 9 of them. I think anyone smart enough to be on this can keep 9 things in their memory. All right. So you said you must be joking.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This was not actually about the son of Stephen King, Joe Hill, although that would be an interesting category as well. Here it is. Guitarist Joe King, who is not the man in the picture, and his Faith Christian Academy schoolmate Isaac Slade formed what piano-driven rock band in 2002?
All right. Do you recognize the picture?
That's from Scrubs.
Okay.
It's the name of is the actor's name McGinley?
Oh, yeah, I think so. Do you know the character's name? Because clearly the picture's there for a reason. I've learned my lesson on this one.
I do not watch Scrubs. I've seen a couple episodes. I don't remember. The character is named, but I don't remember his name.
So,
he's the antagonist.
Yeah, these names do not ring a bell. Thinking of a piano-driven rock band is not helpful.
There aren't that many of them. I'm not familiar with a ton of them.
Given that we have an explicit mention that they went to Faith Christian Academy and not just that they're schoolmates, this could be a Christian rock band.
Yeah.
And none of these insights actually help me get to an answer.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be somewhere on the soft side. There's a lot of piano in it.
Right.
And it couldn't be. What was that? This one with Scott Stapp in it.
Creed, was that a thing?
Yeah. But Creed's not piano driven. It's guitar.
Yeah, and I think they started earlier. But yeah, I'm struggling to find anything to guess that I can't say is already wrong.
Yeah, maybe like Train has piano in it.
Maybe. I mean, that's a band. So
they have a song I've heard, yeah.
I mean, I guess if we want to get really meta on this, is there any way that picture could lead us towards Train? Maybe not. But
I think
unless the doctor's name
is
Dr. Train.
No, it's monogrammed on his coat, but I can't read it at this resolution. His name is not Train.
Yeah,
I know that much. It could be something like more obscure, like Nightwish or something.
Are they piano driven? I thought they're like symphonic.
Yeah,
they're symphonic rock kind of
operatic. Yeah.
And aren't they from Finland or something?
That would make sense. That would make a lot of sense.
Okay. So we know what it is.
We're still at square one. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, Train is fine because it's a band, and I'm starting to believe that continuing to talk will only frustrate us and not get us to an answer.
Well, I think the doctor's name might be Fox.
Okay. All right. So Fleet Foxes, are they piano driven? That's a band, right?
They are a band. I can confirm that.
Do you want to just try that?
Yes, let's go for it.
All right. We'll try Fleet Foxes.
They are, in fact, a band. You are correct about that.
Yes.
They are not the one looking for here. So I'll pass this to Andrew.
Right, so I don't know anything about a band called Train. Nightwish are a Finnish symphonic metal band. I have seen every episode of Scrubs, at least up until the end of season 8. This is John C. McGinley as Dr. Cox, not Dr. Fox. They're close. So this is the episode, if I'm remembering rightly, there were 3 patients with rape. There was I think it was rabies. I'm just trying to remember. I think it was rabies. It was there was an episode where obviously it was a sitcom. It was generally quite lighthearted, and this was a particularly heavy episode where Dr. Cox basically lost 3 patients, and famously during this scene, the song "How to Save a Life" was being played, which, if you remember, this song was very piano driven. It was by a band called The Fray. So I didn't know anything about who was in The Fray, but given this episode, I'm gonna say The Fray.
All right. So first of all, I don't know. You may not appreciate how lucky you are to not be familiar with Train. But they recently, I think one of the songs was literally just a rewritten version of Heart and Soul. And I was like, why is Heart and Soul on the radio?
Wait, Heart and Soul the standard or Heart and Soul the T'Pau song?
No, the piano. And I was thinking actually, if it would be a meta clue for Train if the clue was that the picture led you on a train of thought, and that was what was supposed to lead you to Train. That's just a little bit too meta for me, though. Yeah. But yeah, the Christian part was a bit of a red herring, because although they did go to Christian school, their music is fairly secular. That's not a big hint. Piano driven, on the other hand, is a pretty big hint. There aren't a ton of piano driven rock bands. But of course, the biggest hint, so even though most people associate How to Save a Life with Grey's Anatomy, which also popularized it around the same time, it is definitely used in the episode that Andrew mentioned, which I discussed at length in episode 6 of my podcast. It was based on a real life incident in which 4 people received infected organs from someone who had not yet been diagnosed with rabies. And,
that was it.
Yeah. But yes, Andrew, very good. You solved
Finally, what wasting all those hours paid.
All right, so I will award you a life-saving number of points. All right, Patrick and Mick. Which star, pictured below, of CW's The Vampire Diaries, married the phrase Joe King in 2014, and then, unusually for an established actress, altered her surname in her professional billing? My pun-loving side can't help but wish that during her unwed days she had obtained a medical degree.
Okay. So the pun is going to be like Dr. something King, right? So she probably hyphenated to put King at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, so what would be really funny to fill in between Doctor and King? Is that where we're going here? Right.
I think it's something like that. Maybe it's before maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the name King. It was like her maiden name.
And yeah, I mean, this is probably obvious, but obviously she goes professionally. The professional surname she uses now is not an acceptable answer because it's in the question. Like, normally it would be, but it's in the question. So the
King wouldn't be part of the pun. Her earlier name would be part of the pun, I imagine. Do you have any medical related puns we want to toss out there?
I do not. And I do not know who this person is. I've never watched Vampire Diaries.
Got nothing. I got nothing.
As you may know, I'm not a big fan of The Fray.
There's Dr. Spock. There's Dr. Kildare. There's an infinite variety of things, all of them useless to us.
Dr.
Love?
Maybe. Dr. Octopus. I mean, I don't think that's a surname people have. I do
know a Dr. Love now that I think about it.
Okay.
Shout out to you, Brian.
Doctor.
Whatever you think is clever, I think we can toss out here.
Like Dr. Patient? Like, is Patient a last name anyone has?
Maybe that's what the English Patient was about.
Doctor. What would be really funny to be the last name of a doctor?
The wind is whistling.
I feel stuck.
Yeah, I don't got anything.
You want to try patient?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay, we'll try patient.
All right. Decent guess, but not correct. Andrew?
Yeah, I'm struggling on this. Well, I liked Patrick's thought of Doctor something King, the something being her maiden name, and based on that, I was gonna offer Wan as a suggestion for her name, but I'm not gonna say that. I'm struggling here. I was trying to think of actual kind of puns we got. The Doctor, like Doctor Feelgood, Doctor Livingston, I presume. These aren't really puns. I just yeah, I'm really struggling. I'm gonna. I'm gonna say that her last name is her maiden name is Doctor.
So that was
Just
guessed.
that.
Yeah, that was guessed during the playtest, and it reminded me. I just watched on YouTube a snarky recap of the previous Academy Award ceremony, where they made a bunch of jokes at the expense of the winner of the Best Animated Feature, Pete Doctor. So that is a last name that is used in Hollywood. But, so not a terrible guess, but yeah, and in terms of there was also I wasn't I wanted to kind of clue that the pun was based around her maiden name rather than married one, I guess, because if it were based around the married one, it wouldn't necessarily have to be during her unwed days she had obtained a medicine. She could also obtain one at any point afterwards as well. But so it is specifically about her maiden name, which is what I was looking for in this question. To get there, though, you had to use all parts of the question. So you had to go back to the very beginning, where I mentioned the show she was on, The Vampire Diaries. And it would please me a great deal if there was some...
Acula, is it?
So I said, the general rule is always latitude on vowel sounds. Her maiden surname was actually Acula, but certainly I would have accepted Acula.
Oh yeah, should have thought about that. I was just like, oh, I've never seen a Vampire Diaries, so I'm just gonna skip over that.
Right. Dracula is not. I think Dracula did show up once on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but generally these vampire shows, he's not an actual character. I don't think he ever actually appeared on the Vampire Diaries, but the pun would still have pleased me a great deal. All right. And now looks like, what are the three? There should be three left now. What do we have?
They play McGray. In the end, doesn't even matter. In the triumph of science over death.
Right. So the three grouped together. So I guess we could go in that order, or we could go left to right order. Doesn't really matter. Which one do you guys want to see first?
I want to end with the end.
Oh yes, that's very.
That seems upper, especially since the points don't matter.
Yeah. I like that. Should we start with McGray then?
Sure.
Yes.
All right.
The answer's not Rowan Atkinson. I'm not going to be able to help, but
you're one McGray ahead of me.
All right. Georges Simenon's celebrated detective Inspector Jules Maigret was first depicted on screen in La Nuit de Carrefour, or Night at the Crossroads. In that 1932 film, what actor, pictured below, also seen in Marcel Carné's Les Enfants du Paradis, or Children of Paradise, portrayed the good inspector under the direction of his younger brother?
Huh. Didn't know Marcel Carné had a brother.
And you might want to
I misread that. I see. Yes. Okay, so La Nuit du Carrefour. All right, so it's giving me the same surname as the director of La Nuit du Carrefour.
Right.
Right. So along those lines, oh god, I've actually forgotten his name. That's annoying. The really famous French one who did
Renoir.
Renoir, yeah, Jean Renoir.
Yeah, I mean, I only know so many 30s era French directors, but it may be someone else I've heard of, but
yeah, I mean, he was massively prevalent. Jean Renoir.
Do you know what he looks like?
Does
it look anything vaguely similar to this?
Hold on, this this photo looks like it probably was from the 30s or 40s, right? And he looks
Yeah.
pretty old, doesn't he?
Yes.
This guy, Jean Renoir. I don't think he was young in the 30s, but I don't think he would be, on the same.
Well, I
level.
mean,
his brother would be younger than this.
but his father was active like in the 1890s, right? So he was not a young man.
Is he the son of?
I believe so, of Pierre
I
Auguste
thought-
Renoir, the painter.
Yeah, I thought it might be nephew, but then also that would.
It's one
Basically,
generation
there's,
away.
There's
Yeah.
certainly quite a few famous Renoirs. Like, there's more than just those two. I just don't know the other ones.
Well,
so maybe just
hopefully
based on
this
that.
is the third
Yeah,
one we're
exactly.
looking at.
Yeah. Also, I'm struggling to remember any of the French directors from the 30s. To be honest, I'm sure I would have heard of some, but none have come to mind. This isn't and La Nuit du Carrefour isn't Renoir's most famous work. Yeah, that's all I've got really, to be honest. I don't know.
So is that what you're locking in?
I'm down for that.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, we'll say that.
Monsieur Renoir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the playtest, people went with also some French New Wave directors, but the New Wave kicked off at the very end of the 50s, so that they would all be way too young for this. So yeah, in terms of someone active in the 30s, yeah, pretty much far and away the most famous French filmmaker known to Americans who was active around then would be Jean Renoir. And yeah, I wasn't expecting you to dig any deeper than that. This is yeah. So the answer is his older brother, actually 9 years older, so substantially older. His brother was Pierre Renoir, and they were both sons of Pierre Auguste Renoir, the famous painter.
Right.
Yeah. I think one generation below you have probably the third most famous Renoir in that family, Claude Renoir, who was a cinematographer who made a number of noted films.
Yeah, I knew there was a cinematographer somewhere in there. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Pierre Auguste Renoir I think he died in 1919, so I guess timeline-wise, that probably works out quite well, doesn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, Pierre Renoir, I think probably his other, so Children of Paradise was probably his other noted film, which he was only in because the actor who originally played, so the film was shot during the Nazi occupation of Paris, famously under very adverse conditions, but the actor who originally played that role was, after the liberation, was convicted of collaboration by a Nazi, by a denazification court, and fled the country, so all of his scenes were reshot with Pierre Renoir. Kind of an early all the money in the world type situation. All right. Next question. Maigret has been interpreted on the small screen by, among others, Italy's Gino Cervi, the USSR's Boris Tenin, Japan's Kinya Aikawa, pictured below, France's Jean Richard and Bruno Kremer, and Britain's Rupert Davies and Michael Gambon. Michael Gambon is originally Irish, but the role was on British TV. More recently, what typically comedic thespian played wildly against type by reining in his rubbery features to incarnate the stoic Maigret in 2016 and 2017?
Right. So, I do not. Obviously, I consider Rowan Atkinson a comedic actor. I would not have considered him a thespian.
No, but
So it's a broad term.
Yeah.
But rubbery features sounds about right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty sure.
So
I think Rowan Atkinson did play Maigret around.
Yes. Okay. Right. And he's comedic, and we don't have anyone else to guess.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this a long time ago.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm happy with that if you guys are.
Yeah. I mean.
Okay. We'll say Rowan Atkinson.
All right. Okay. So I guess, there was another question where your Britishness helped. Yeah. In the play, it's actually quite impressive because they were all Americans. They didn't know that, but they deduced it just from typically comedic and rubbery features and who would be playing against type. But yeah, knowing Rowan Atkinson played Maigret is a more direct way into it. So I will give you a number of points equivalent to the number of Maigret novels, which is several hundred, I think.
Wow.
No, it's at least triple digits, though, I'm pretty sure. All right. And since you wanted the end for the end, we'll go to the triumph of science over death. So the triumph of science over death, it was sculpted by a certain polymath, also a novelist, essayist, poet, playwright, painter, and physician, who, due to his execution by European colonizers, is considered a martyr and national hero in which country? And so here, this is the original sculpture, basically a nude woman with a torch, holding a torch over her head, standing on top of a skull. This is a statue that is a replica of this sculpture, much larger, obviously.
Okay.
So
Do we think
this
that
is
says
Latin America,
Calderon
right?
in the back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it might be a Spanish-speaking country.
Right.
That was
It's got to
colonized.
be Latin America somewhere, but in terms, I don't know this piece. I don't know this piece of art. So let's think. Executed by European
Novelist
colonists.
and physician.
National, yeah. So, and novelist is like a weird one. So when you think, when was Cortez's like expedition? Was that like 15?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. So
That's
this
it
early
wouldn't
for a
be-
novelist.
yeah, the
someone in the
statue
16th
looks
century wouldn't
the
make a
statue looks
like this.
reasonably modern. Yeah, because I think executions by colonizers is something from the very beginning of exploration, not something from, say, the 1800s.
It could be like a country that was colonized not during the first wave, so something like
Yeah, possibly.
or recolonized, like the Philippines, for instance.
Hmm.
Because that hairstyle is very modern on the statue.
True. I see what you mean. European colonizers. It depends how you define. Yeah, in terms of like
the Philippines wasn't European colonizers the second time.
No, well, I mean, maybe not the second time, but it could be the Spaniards. So yeah, the Spaniards were there later than they were in South America. Yeah, now that you've said that, I kind of like it.
I kind of like it as well. I'm just trying to think if the way this was worded seems like we might know who this person. Like we might know the name of this person.
So I mean,
can't
the
think of any
Philippines have
Filipino.
there's a national hero, I believe his name
Like
is
Rizal,
Rizal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and was he a physician? I don't know.
I know
if
he was a
that's-
novelist and poet.
He was.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
I
then,
mean,
then I like
basically,
that,
just based on that, I really like this now in that case because that was the only thing slightly putting me up. But yeah,
I don't know if he was-
I don't know anyone, but
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
if he
I
was
think
executed.
Philippines.
He could have been.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, if he was a revolutionary, maybe they I guess I'm misinterpreting. I'm thinking not really execution. I'm thinking just like massacred. But if he was some trumped up charges on being a revolutionary, he certainly could have been executed.
Yeah. I quite like Mik's idea of Philippines, but
Yeah.
I don't know anything.
Okay, we can go with it. I'll take all the blame if we're wrong.
All right, so I think there's a pretty active quizzing scene in the Philippines. So if anyone from there sees this, they'll just be from the beginning. They would have been screaming Rizal, because yes, he was a polymath. He was a physician in addition to a visual artist and an author, and he was executed by, I think, in 1896. So a little bit before the war kicked off that freed Philippines from Spain, and then of course
Colonize them under somebody else.
yes, they were very briefly free under what's now known as the First Philippine Republic. But then the U.S. colonized them. The U.S. who had driven away the Spaniards then just took it over themselves. But yeah, you picked up on the Calderon part as well. So the statue is in front of the University of the University of Philippines in Manila, but specifically the medical campus and something called Calderon Hall. But yeah, that took you to the Spanish speaking, to the sphere colonized by Spain, and then you managed to work your way to the correct answer. So.
Nice, mate.
All right, you'll get a archipelago's worth of points there. And next question. The title of José Rizal's most famous novel, Noli Me Tangere, comes from the Latin translation of John 2017. But according to Wikipedia, it also idiomatically refers to neoplasms that grow in or on which part of the human body. By profession, Rizal was a doctor specializing in this organ.
What is this? So Noli Me Tangere, I think, means touch me not or something like that,
Don't touch
doesn't
me.
it?
That's-
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this?
According
So
to
what is this? A
Wikipedia-
paint? Can you expand the painting, please?
No, it's not one of those. It doesn't have a red border,
Okay.
but Yeah, I mean, it's Correggio's depiction of the biblical scene.
Yeah. And his
I have
commentary.
a syntactical question.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia, what refers to neoplasms?
The phrase, the title.
Phrase of the novel.
Yes.
Okay, not John 2017.
Right. Yeah.
Neoplasms. So new.
I think a
Whatever
neoplasm is just a kind of growth. I don't think it's specific to one organ.
The most obvious thing would be the skin.
Maybe it's an in or on. I don't know if things grow in the skin so much. I mean, I guess they can, but it seems a weird way of describing something.
So I mean, that wording was deliberately vague, basically, to not narrow it down by saying.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Got
so
it.
it's not necessarily an internal organ. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, skin makes sense in terms of it's a growth and we don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I guess it could have been a dermatologist. I guess if you know, I feel like in terms of the meta aspect. So Yogesh didn't tell us that Mitangre means touch me not, although the three of us do know that. That obviously lends itself to referring to skin, right? With touching, I would say. So just from that sense, I would be inclined to say that. I also can't think of anything that would be better. None of the internal organs sound like it would. Yeah, it just doesn't sound right.
The liver can have growths on it to some degree.
But why would you call them touch me not, right? All the internal organs, we're not touching them in the first place.
That's true.
Yeah.
And if it was the skin, you wouldn't, like it says, which part of the human body?
Yeah.
So it could be something more specific, like the hand.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It does say organ, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the hand isn't.
The nose.
Organ? I don't think.
I don't think it would refer to it as an organ. No.
No.
The eyes. Why would you touch the eyes in the first place? Although I feel like an eye doctor would be more of a polymath than a skin doctor, but that's just my prejudices showing.
Yeah, I mean, for whatever reason in my head, I think of dermatology as a specialization not existing 120 years ago, but that could just be my own limited sphere of knowledge.
I see what you mean. Yeah, whereas ophthalmologist almost certainly did in some manner. That's a good question. I could go with eyes.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say that.
You're lacking in eyes?
Yes, the eyes have it.
Yeah. It clearly set you up for that, but it's well delivered. Yeah, so I mean, skin certainly seems to fit a lot of the clues, right? It's a specialty that does have a specific branch of medicine devoted to it. It is definitely something that is plagued by cancer, which, I mean, neoplasms, technically could be any kind of growth. Usually it refers to cancerous growths. But it just fits, although I'm also not sure if it was a medical specialization that long ago. In terms of where, even as a child, you're told not to touch, no matter how much it bothers you. And especially in this current era, well, we're not supposed to touch any part of our face, but especially the mucous membrane part. So it's also a good reminder to not touch your eyes. But that your logic, your eventual logic was the correct one.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, Rizal was an ophthalmologist.
So. Well, I think there's I can think of lots of eye doctors who did other things intellectually. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't think about dermatologists.
It's like insurance salesmen, I guess, in that regard. A lot of people who did it also did other things.
We apologize to any dermatologists watching this broadcast.
Sorry, Eric, if you're watching this.
But yes, you get 20 points.
That's even better than 2017.
Yes. But if you were really good, you would have gotten 2010, which would be fewer points, but better vision. All right. And now we ask ourselves, in the end, does it even matter? So on that existential note, we enter the final category. What Greek rock formation, pictured below, home to an Eastern Orthodox monastery complex seen at the climax of the James Bond thriller For Your Eyes Only, also gave its name to the 2003 Linkin Park album containing Somewhere I Belong and Numb?
I think I might know the name of the album.
I definitely. This was like probably the second album I ever bought, or third album. It's called Meteora.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh,
It's not Hybrid Theory, the rock formation.
Yeah. Mount Hybrid Theory is my favorite of the Greek rock formation.
Yeah, it's the monastery that was just, the most famous.
Yeah. I was going to say, before the Linkin Park though, I was reading it, I was thinking it might be Mount Athos or something.
Yeah, that's what popped into my head. But yeah, I haven't heard of this Meteora thing, but sounds like you're both pretty sure of it. So
I think we should lock that in, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think Mick is as well. Yep, all right, Meteora it is.
All right, yeah. So on the right is the Monastery of the Holy Trinity, which stood in for Saint Cyril's in For Your Eyes Only, although much of it had to be recreated in the studio because when they actually tried to film there, the monks in the monastery didn't really approve of it and did their best to passive-aggressively undermine the filmmaking whenever possible. But yes, the overall rock formation is called Meteora, and that's also the name of the album.
Well, I think it's because the monastery was for their eyes only.
Exactly. So I will give you 007 points for that. And now the final question of the game. One of only 2 albums released by the Zombies during their heyday, Odyssey and Oracle, and that misspelling is in the original title. Odyssey and Oracle initially met lukewarm reception, but over the decades built a steady cult following and was even ranked one of the top 100 albums of all time by Rolling Stone. What song from that album is currently experiencing a huge resurgence due to its use in the 2020 Schitt's Creek series finale and a sweet 2021 Kohl's Back to School ad?
Okay.
I've not seen Schitt's Creek.
So I'll just throw. So Zombies did Time of the Season, which maybe could tie into Back to School. I feel like there are other zombie songs I know, but that's the only one that's springing to mind right now.
Springing to mind?
Oh, yeah.
That's
and
more
again,
knowledge than I have.
it does seem like, Back to School, time seasonal is at least plausible.
Yeah. Is there something, so it says a sweet 2021, is this just Yogesh's opinion for me? Is there any sort of clue there from the word sweet? Or
I am not sure.
No. Yeah. Have either of you watched Schitt's Creek?
I have not. No.
No, I have not either. Zombies. So in my head, like I always have to think, like I always get the Cranberries who did Zombie, and the Zombies very mixed up. Like, 2 extremely different bands, but thankfully the year was there to put my head right.
Is the Zombies garage rock, as I would assume?
Sorry?
Is the Zombies garage rock? Or
I mean, to me, they have just kind of a generic 60s sound. I don't know if I would say anything more specific than that.
Yeah.
The use of the word sweet is probably telling in some way.
Yeah.
I wish I could think of another Zombies song just to test it as being more plausible.
I feel like I've heard of Time of the Season, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I'm much more help on this. Sweet.
Sugar Sugar is by a different band.
Oh yeah, who did that? Because that was a 60s thing, wasn't
The
it?
Archies, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So just how is this related to the name of the category? Is that link clear to us in any way?
What was it called again? In the End.
It doesn't even matter.
So in the first one, In the End is a song by Linkin Park.
Right. Yeah, that part I got.
Yeah. So what's going on here?
Oh, maybe just series finale of Schitt's Creek.
That would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, Time of the Season is the only zombie song I can name right now, and at least it has some possibility of making
some relevance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the word sweet just seems...
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I
also
also
like the commercial.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah. We haven't had any. Have we had? Oh no, we have had a Pretty Little Liars reference. Because one thing I did do about 3 hours ago was quickly scan the Wikipedia article for Pretty Little Liars because I know Yogesh loves it so much. But I don't think that's it coming up here.
If only you'd read the Vampire Diaries instead.
No.
Yeah, damn it. Yeah, I think we should just go for time of the season.
Okay.
Again, nothing better.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So the Zombies were basically a 3-hit wonder band. They had basically 3 songs that charted in the U.S., and those same 3 songs get played on oldies radio to represent them. 2 from their first album. I think their first album was just called The Zombies, but the 2 hits from there were She's Not There and Tell Her No. And then from Odyssey and Oracle, really the only song that charted. I think 4 of the tracks were released as singles. The only one that charted was Time of the Season. But that's not really a song having a resurgence because it's kind of always been popular since it was released. Yeah, so this, I'm kind of wondering now if it's something with my algorithm because, like, when I just, surf around YouTube naturally, I get this ad like 5 or 10 times a day. So yeah, at least the first 5 seconds of it. But I'm surprised it's not really clicking with any of you. But yeah, I mean, sweet. It's just a description of the tone of the ad. I think it's very sweet. It's also kind of the tone of the song as well. But the song, it's one of those things where it just, for 45, 50 years just kind of lay dormant. It wasn't even released as a single. It was an album track, and people didn't really care about it. And then in the past few years, it's been in like 4 different national commercials, including another Kohl's one, as well as one for Starbucks and one for Figs, the medical supply clothing, fashionable medical clothing company, which I didn't even realize was a thing until I looked into it. But so it's been in, those 4 national commercials. This one really highlights it though because the dad actually like sings along to it, so it really plays into the song. But yeah, it's also used in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel season finale and Schitt's Creek series finale. Again, just one of those kind of things where something gets released, lays dormant for 45, 50 years, and then suddenly explodes into the mainstream. But the song is called This Will Be Our Year.
Yeah.
And I don't recognize it by title, but I have this feeling I will go listen to it and say like, oh, I've been hearing that.
I have a feeling I'm going to go onto YouTube, and even though I don't live in the US, I know definitely not a thing called Kohl's where I live. I will get this ad now.
Yeah. Well, the algorithms know you have just heard about Kohl's.
Yeah, the algorithm does know.
Surprised that Yogesh doesn't know about AdBlock Plus.
Yeah, when I mentioned that in the playtest, Victoria said similar thing about ad blocker. But then how else would I keep my finger on the cultural pulse or whatever? But what was very weird was that because I'd been getting that, the back to school ad over and over and over again. Right after I did the playtest, I went to YouTube and I suddenly, out of nowhere, got the other Kohl's ad that used the song. The first time ever, and I can only speculate about why. But all right, so back to this easy and have an easier. I know now how to locate it. I'm not going through the whole thing where I click through a bunch of screens to get to it like last time. But yes, just putting this up there just as a general reminder. Yeah. But yeah, so before we sign off, we can you'll each get a chance to say pretty much anything you like. Keeping in mind this is live, and so anything you say can potentially be traced back to you, which I don't imagine would be a problem, but just saying it for formality's sake. And again, thank you to everyone who's stuck through the stream all this time. And I guess because Andrew went last in the other times we picked, let him go first this time.
Okay. My plan was to think of this while the other 2 guys were going to do this. I don't have any particular... I guess thanks, Yogesh, for having me on. I have recorded an episode of Yogesh's podcast, which has not yet been released. I think I'm still right in saying that. Yogesh, right?
Right, yeah.
It will be appearing on the next season, so look out for that. I'm on with Joey Goldman and Ronnie Jackson, which is a very fun episode, so do listen to that. I am currently on a British quiz show that most people are probably familiar with called Only Connect this season with a couple of friends of mine. First episode of ours went out, so to look out for me there. I don't have anything else to say. We're just plugging my my one appearance on TV.
I'm sure we'll also look out for you in the mathematics journals we all read.
Oh yes, for sure, absolutely.
All right, yeah, I should have mentioned earlier your only Connect appearance, which is the current season. So there's no, obviously, none of us other than you have any knowledge of how well you did, but we'll be anxiously watching and rooting for you. And and you're right, that was a very fun episode of my podcast you're on. So yeah, so something else to look forward to. All right, and it doesn't really matter to me between Patrick and Mick which one goes next. So one of you can go.
I can go.
Sure.
Thank you for having me. For a long time, I sort of theoretically wanted to be on your podcast, but always struggled to think what would I choose as my specialist categories. And now I've sort of managed to find a way around that by playing this, which was a lot of fun. I certainly enjoyed playing with Mick and Andrew. We saw some examples where 2 or 3 heads are much better than 1, which is, part of how this game works. And just thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And yeah, definitely that's, again, both the podcast and here, that's kind of the chief pleasure of it, letting people put their minds together and letting people see how sort of that collaborative process can make questions that seem opaque, difficult, or even impossible, ultimately make them solvable. So you all did a very good job demonstrating that. Mick?
I'd also like to say I appreciate the opportunity to be on your trivia shows. It's always a pleasure. To demonstrate some knowledge and maybe learn a lot more. I don't have anything to plug specifically, but I'd say one thing I did during the last stage of before lockdown sort of ended was I watched Veep, which is an excellent show which everyone should watch. And if I get the last word, is that get AdBlock Plus, cutting advertisements out of my life. I've always treasured that, and I have lost nothing except for the ability to answer that final question.
There you go. Yeah. Sometimes, as like with Andrew's watching of Scrubs, sometimes something you put a lot of effort into pays off. Sometimes, as with Mick, sometimes what you avoid backfires. I guess that's just how life is. But yeah. So again, thank you to everyone watching. Thank you to all the contestants, and looks like we can sign off now.
All right. Bye bye.
All right.